Hey guys, Krista from Krista Quilts here, back with another machine quilting design for you to try. We're going to take our straight lines quilted with the walking foot and we're going to do a couple of cool modern looking designs. You can quilt shattered lines or wavy shattered lines either as an individual block or all over from edge to edge across your quilt. No matter which way you stitch it, it's going to look great. Both of these designs can be found in my book, 99 Machine Quilting Designs. So let's get to it. Let's try out shattered lines, design number 8 from the book, and wavy shattered lines, design number 17. So let's start by doodling out some shattered lines. Now, this is one of those really fun walking foot designs. It's very easy and carefree. However, it's still very important for me to first lay down a few anchor lines. These can be totally random, or I can follow seam lines as a guide. Once I've got a few lines across the area, then I can just randomly fill in any which way in any direction. This is for sure one of those designs that's going to look different depending on how I stitch it. The drawing just kind of gives me an idea of where I want to go, but then when I actually stitch it out, it's probably going to look completely different, even though it's basically the same technique. For my shattered lines design, I am now going to be using painter's tape to help mark my lines. This is one of my easiest ways to quilt when I'm doing straight lines if I want my lines to actually be more relatively straight. If you prefer straight-ish lines with a little wiggle in them, that's totally fine too. If you want to mark them so they're totally straight, you can do that too. You've got lots of options. So basically what I'm doing is I'm putting down a piece of painter's tape, and I can stitch either on one side of painter's tape or the other side or both. And I'm still going to lay down a set of anchor quilting lines. For this design, my anchor quilting lines are pretty random and all over the place. What I'm looking for is I want good coverage all over the quilt so that it's not going to shift on me as I add additional lines of quilting. I'm basically stitching the straight lines from one point on the quilt all the way over to the other side. For even more variety in your lines, you can change your needle position to make the lines closer together or more widely spaced apart. I'm using my built-in Bernina dual feed and specialty dual feed foot number 20, which works the same way as a walking foot. For the rest of the lines, I'm not using the tape and I'm just going to eyeball it. This is another one of those designs that you can have as many lines as you want to make the texture either dense or light. The hardest part about this design is knowing when to stop. So I'm just going to continue quilting lines until I feel like it's relatively filled in. Here's what the finished sample looks like. The cool thing about this design is it looks different every time you quilt it. So for wavy shattered lines, it's basically the same principle as the straight shattered lines, except obviously the lines are wavy, and you're just going to do that by wiggling your fabric or your quilt underneath the machine. So I'm starting off with a couple of those anchor lines. Maybe it forms a kind of fun design. And then again, I just quilt these wavy lines totally randomly all over the place. The hardest part about this design, honestly, is just knowing when to stop. So just keep adding lines, and definitely it's going to look different when I stitch it, but you get the basic idea. For wavy shattered lines, it's basically much faster to quilt a wavy line than a straight line. So this design is really fun, forgiving, and carefree, and it goes by very quickly. One little bonus tip I want to share is that every straight line design that I'm showing you can be quilted with a wavy line to kind of jazz it up just a little bit. Now I'm still anchor quilting. I'm still stitching a few lines to hold the quilt in place, and sometimes I like to make a fun pattern when I do. My machine is still set up for straight line stitching, and I'm wiggling the quilt back and forth to form the wavy lines. Here's how my finished sample turned out. For some bonus homework, you can try combining straight lines with wavy lines to create something new and fun. That's how I like to quilt shattered lines and wavy shattered lines. Now in this quilt behind me, I quilted the straight shattered lines just to add a little bit of texture to the quilt. The pattern is called Bling, and it's one of those patterns I've made several different times just to try out different things. I knew that the quilting wouldn't be the star of the show, so it was a great way to practice this design. When it came time to stitching the lines, I tried a combination of different marking techniques. I used painter's tape in long strips across the quilt. I varied the needle position and used the edge of my foot as a guide. And some of the lines I just kind of let go, be simple and carefree. No matter which way you stitch it, you're going to have a good time with this one. So be sure to check out the description box for links to my patterns, the book, and the intro video that gives you a lot of tips and tricks for better machine quilting. Be sure to join me for the next one for more machine quilting designs.